If you've ever wondered why you keep struggling with food despite trying everything, today's episode will finally give you some answers. We're going to dive into the 8 primary reasons why people binge eat or feel out of control around food sometimes. And more importantly, we're going to address the real solutions that actually work. You're about to understand why just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full has never been enough. Welcome to Binge Eating Breakthrough, the podcast to help you stop feeling out of control around food and build trust with your body. If you've tried everything but still feel stuck, you're not alone. I've been there too. I'm Jane Pilger, and I'm here to help you see binge eating in a new way so you can finally break free. Each week, you'll get the tools and insights to create peace with food and your body. Your breakthrough starts now. Hello, trusted listener. I consider you a trusted listener because I trust that you are ready to understand the real reasons behind your struggles with food. I trust that you're willing to look beyond surface level solutions and dig into what's actually happening underneath. And I trust that you're open to discovering that your binge eating isn't a character flaw. It is a logical response to specific underlying issues. Now, last week, we talked about how binges are signals and not setbacks. We explored the idea that your binges, your moments when you show up with food in ways that you don't prefer, they are like lights on the dashboard of your car, telling you that something needs attention under the hood. And today, we are going to get under that hood and examine exactly what might be causing those lights to come on. I'm going to share with you the 8 primary reasons why people binge or feel out of control around food sometimes, along with the real solutions for each one. Now, this is not about quick fixes. This is not about strategies for willpower or to just fight your way through urges and cravings. These are root causes that, when addressed, can completely transform your relationship with food. Now, as we go through these, you might recognize all 8 reasons in yourself, or maybe 2 or 3. It's completely normal. Some people have multiple interconnected reasons, while others have a few primary ones. The important thing here is that this framework helps you understand why this has been such a struggle for so long, and why simple advice like just eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, make a plan, eat what you say you're going to eat hasn't worked for you. Now, if you want to dive deeper into any of these reasons, you can go back to the very first episodes of this podcast where I explore each one in much more detail. So today we're just getting the overview so you can start to identify your own patterns, your own reasons. So as I go through these 8 reasons, I invite you to get really curious. Which ones sound like, oh yeah, this is me? Whether it is 1, 2, or all 8 really doesn't make anything good or bad or better or worse. It's just good to know. These are the areas then that you know, now I know where I can work. The problem is not the food. If we're only focused on the food, all of these other 8 reasons are still going to be under the surface, under the hood. So look for yourself. As I explain each of these 8 to you, I want you to really identify which one or ones really resonate with me. All right, so before we get under the hood, we actually need to start with what's preventing most people from even being able to lift that hood in the first place. And that is reason number 1. Reason number 1, shame and judgment. I think of shame and judgment as the 50-pound hood, 50-pound weight on the hood of your car. When you are stuck in shame and judgment about your eating, you can't even get under the hood to see what's making the lights go on. And this is why shame and judgment is reason number one. So what does this look like? What does shame and judgment even look like? After a binge, after a moment with food that you don't prefer, you immediately go into self-attack mode. You might be saying things like, I'm so disgusting. I have no willpower. I'll never figure this out. I'm broken. What is wrong with me? When you are in this state, you're not curious about what happened. You're not looking for patterns or information. You're just stuck in the shame spiral. Now, we talked about this on last week's episode also. When you are in shame and judgment, you are in the survival part of your brain. That part of your brain is running the show. This is where we have to come into the solution. The solution to shame and judgment is to understand. We have to understand why our behaviors are happening. And we need to learn to shift from shame and judgment into curiosity and compassion. Now, this doesn't mean you become passive about change. It doesn't mean that you don't want something different for yourself. It doesn't mean that you just placate and say, oh, it's fine, this all makes sense, and you just stay where you are. No. What it means is that you create the emotional safety necessary for your brain to actually learn and grow. In order to get into curiosity, in order to get into compassion, in order to get to the place in your brain where we have access to new ideas and new solutions, there has to be safety involved. And when we're in shame and we're in judgment, we're in that survival part of the brain. So we have to start with shame and judgment. We have to shift from shame and judgment to curiosity and compassion before we can even open the hood. When we can remove the 50-pound weight from the hood of the car, now those other 7 reasons, we get to the root cause. What are the other things that are causing you to struggle with food in the first place? So the shame and judgment it's not a root cause, but what it does is it keeps you stuck. It keeps you in the cycle. Once you are there, then shame and judgment and the pattern of going into the shame and the judgment every time keeps that weight on the hood of the car, so we can't really even get in and look at anything else. All right, so now let's get under the hood and look at these other 7 reasons. Reason number 2 is restriction. Now, this reason is absolutely key. And sometimes it's surprising for people, and sometimes people really realize, restriction. Yes, I do restrict. Some people don't really realize just how much they restrict and in what ways. But here's just some general categories, general caveats, descriptions of restriction. If you are not eating enough food to meet your overall needs, if you are holding on to the idea that certain foods are bad, if you are restricting foods or food groups from fear of gaining weight, it will be very challenging to develop a peaceful relationship with food. So here's what restriction looks like. Maybe you're not eating enough during the day. So by evening, you're ravenous. Maybe you've labeled certain foods as bad and you feel guilty every time you eat them. Maybe every time you start eating a quote unquote bad food, you find that you just can't stop. You're trying to hide. You keep eating. You keep telling yourself, I won't eat this again tomorrow, so I better eat all I can. I better get this out of my system. Better get this out of the house. Maybe you're following food rules about when, what, or how much you should eat. Your body doesn't know the difference between intentional restriction and straight up famine. When it senses restriction, it will drive you to seek out food, often in large quantities, often in that high caloric density type of food to ensure survival. This is biology. It's not a lack of willpower. So what's the solution here? To remove restrictions gradually and systematically. Now, this means eating enough food throughout the day, giving yourself permission to eat all foods, and challenging the diet mentality that keeps you stuck in restriction binge cycles. That's reason number 2. Reason number 3 is a dysregulated nervous system. Your nervous system is constantly scanning for safety or threats. And when your nervous system is dysregulated, meaning it's stuck in one of the survival modes, it's stuck in fight or flight or freeze, maybe even collapse, it can drive you toward food as a way to find regulation and calm. So this might look like binging when you're stressed, using food to cope with anxiety, or eating when you feel overwhelmed or emotionally activated. Your nervous system has learned that food provides a sense of safety and regulation. So the solution here is to work with your nervous system through practices that help you find regulation in other ways. Some of these practices might include breath work, movement, meditation, or other regulation techniques. You're not trying to eliminate the stress from your life. You're building your capacity to handle that stress without automatically turning to food. The other part of the solution here is just understanding your nervous system, understanding what it is, understanding your own signals, understanding how it works, understanding the intricacies that are always taking place inside your body. That's reason number 3, the nervous system. Reason number 4, disconnection from your body. Many people who struggle with binge eating, who struggle with feeling out of control around food sometimes, have lost touch with their body signals. You might not even recognize hunger, fullness, or what foods your body actually wants. I see this so often when I start working with a client and we start, really getting curious about their food choices. So often they tell me, I don't even know what I like. I don't even know what I want. I have been eating the same foods for so long because I was told these are the good foods. These are the foods I'm supposed to eat. I don't even know if I like them. And this disconnection, it develops over years of dieting, restriction, maybe not being taught to trust your body's wisdom. It can also come from trauma. When we have some very, very good reason to disconnect from our body, our nervous system can very wisely discover, if I just disconnect from what's going on down there, it is safer. So that's another reason. It's not just dieting or restriction or ignoring our signals. Sometimes there are other really good reasons that we have disconnected from our body. But the solution is here to learn how to connect with your body. Hey, quick pause here because I want to make sure you know about a free live workshop that I'm hosting on October 13th. It's called The Telltale Signs a Binge is Coming and How to Break the Cycle. If this podcast gives you insights, the workshop is going to take it to the next level because you'll actually experience a practice to interrupt the binge cycle in real time. Sign up today at janepilger.com/event. And we do that through practices that help you tune in to your physical sensations, to your emotions, to your needs, to start learning the language, relearning the language of your body, rebuilding the relationship and trust between you and your body. All right, reason number 5, using food as a coping mechanism. Sometimes food becomes a primary way of dealing with difficult emotions or difficult situations. Now, I wanted to say that using food for comfort is not inherently problematic. But when it is your only coping strategy, this can lead to feeling out of control around food. So this might look like automatically reaching for food whenever you're stressed, sad, lonely, or bored. Food becomes the solution to every emotional state, even when you're not physically hungry. So the solution here is to expand what I call your emotional capacity. This is your capacity to be with any emotion. And the way that we do this is we need to develop multiple coping strategies. Now, this doesn't mean that you can never eat for emotional reasons or even that it's bad to eat for emotional reasons. But it's actually any person who does any sort of carpentry, let's say, would likely agree that having multiple tools in your toolbox is way more efficient to be able to get the kind of work you want done in the world. It takes more than one tool. If the only tool in your toolbox is food, which isn't really actually even solving the need for your emotions to flow and to move and for that energy to be in motion, we only have one tool in the toolbox and it's not even a very effective tool. It would be like a carpenter walking around with, I don't know, what might a carpenter have in their toolbox? Like a rubber ball in their toolbox. And that's the only tool that they have. They're not really going to be building a whole lot or getting a lot done. So we expand emotional capacity by bringing more tools into our toolbox and creating safety for ourselves around feeling other emotions. All right, let's move on. Reason number 6, the attempt to control. Now, this is where it kind of is a little, there's a paradox here, because the more you try to control your eating, the more out of control it can feel. And when you are constantly monitoring, restricting, and trying to manage every aspect of your food intake, you create an internal pressure that often leads to binging, rebellion, screw it eating. And this looks like obsessing over food choices, following rigid meal plans, constantly thinking about what you should or shouldn't eat, or feeling like you need to be perfect with your eating. So the solution here is to develop two-way trust. Trusting your body to guide you and proving to your body that you are trustworthy by consistently responding to its needs without judgment or restriction. And we just had an episode a couple of weeks ago about how to trust yourself around food again, if you want to check that one out. All right, reason number 7, habit. Now, a lot of people look at this as the reason, the number one reason, the only reason. And there is a reason that it's number 7 on my list, because yes, it is true. Anything we do repeatedly over time becomes a habit. And this includes our eating patterns and our behaviors. But habit cannot be the only reason. Most people try to change their eating by only looking at it as a habit and not addressing the other reasons we've discussed. And habit change alone cannot solve binge eating if the underlying causes are still present. But habits truly are at play. If you have been binging or overeating in response to certain triggers for months or even years, your brain has created strong neural pathways that automatically lead to that behavior. So this could look like always eating in front of the TV, automatically going to the kitchen when you get home from work, or binging at the same time every day, regardless of your hunger levels or what else is going on in your body. So the solution here is to break the habit by interrupting the automatic pattern while simultaneously addressing the other underlying reasons. You need both. You can't just change the habit without addressing what's driving it. So we need to do both. Yes, this is a habit. Yes, this is something that has been ingrained. You do have the neural pathways in play. And yes, neuroplasticity is real. We can absolutely change these patterns while we address the other issues. So reason number 8, negative self-talk. The way you speak to yourself directly impacts your relationship with food. If your internal dialogue is harsh, critical, and judgmental, it creates the very emotional states that often trigger binge eating. So what might that sound like? I'm so disgusting. I have no willpower. I always mess everything up. Or I'll never figure this out. This negative self-talk creates feelings of shame, hopelessness, and disconnection from yourself, which kind of brings us right back up to number 1, right? Now we're in shame and judgment. The negative self-talk keeps us here, keeps us stuck. So the solution is to change your internal dialogue, to learn to speak with yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend. Now, this is not about positive affirmations that feel fake. It's about developing genuine self-compassion. All right, so we've gone through the 8 reasons. I'm going to tell you what they are one more time. Number 1, shame and judgment. Number 2, restriction. Number 3, dysregulated nervous system. Number 4, disconnection from your body. Number 5, using food as a coping mechanism. Number 6, attempt to control. Number 7, habit. And number 8, negative self-talk. Now, here's what's really important to understand. These reasons are often interconnected. Shame and judgment can lead to restriction. Restriction can dysregulate your nervous system. A dysregulated nervous system can disconnect you from your body. Disconnection from your body can lead to using food as your primary coping mechanism. It goes on. They are all interconnected. And this is why addressing binge eating isn't as simple as just changing one thing. And it's most definitely not as simple as just looking at what you're eating. This is why you might have tried habit change or willpower approaches and found them insufficient. You were not addressing the full picture. But here is the good news. When you start addressing these underlying reasons, everything begins to shift. You don't have to fix all 8 at once. Often working on one area creates positive changes in others. So for example, when you start removing restrictions around food, your nervous system often begins to regulate more easily. When you develop compassion, you naturally become more connected to your body. When you expand your emotional coping capacity, you don't need food to be your primary source of comfort. Now, here is one thing that happens. If you start removing restrictions and you do it in a way that doesn't feel safe, then that sometimes can go in the other direction. And this is why sometimes you need support on this journey. Support from somebody who has been there, support from somebody who knows what this path looks like. It can be a lot to try to figure it all out on your own. There can be a lot going on under the hood. I don't know about you, but I do not try to fix my own car. I take it to a mechanic, to somebody who knows what they are doing. But for now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to reflect on these 8 reasons. Which ones feel the most relevant to you? Where do you see yourself? Now remember, this is not about judging yourself for having these patterns. It's about understanding why they developed and what they need now. Your binges make sense. Your struggles with food make sense. And when you understand the underlying reasons, you can start addressing them at the root level instead of just trying to control the symptoms. I actually put together a quiz if you want to find out why you struggle, what your reason is. You can go check out the quiz and take it at janepilger.com/quiz. You'll get your results, you'll get an email, and along with some guidance, some ideas of where you can start next. Now, next week, We're going to talk about how to decode your personal signals, how to identify which of these reasons are most active for you, and how to start addressing them in a way that actually creates lasting change. And until then, I invite you to be gentle with yourself. You are not broken. Your relationship with food is not broken. There are just some underlying issues that need attention. And now you know what they are. I'll see you next week. Want to go deeper and actually experience this work? Join me live on October 13th for my free online workshop, The Telltale Signs a Binge is Coming and How to Break the Cycle. Together, we'll explore the signals your body gives before a binge, and I will guide you through a practice to break the cycle. Save your seat today at janepilger.com/event. I'll see you there.